Hi everyone, and welcome to the penultimate installment of this mammoth project to KITBASH Tamiya's classic 1/35th scale Panzer II Ausf. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the initial painting stages using acrylics, MMP, and atom paints from MIG. So if that's something of interest to you, then pull up a chair and let's go do some painting. So first off, I used the Badger undercoat primer. Give us a nice brown base. For those of you who follow my work, know that I've now gone back to using all acrylic-based paints, and this has always been one of my favourites. Now, the reason I've been able to go back to using acrylics is there's a few little extras that I'm now using. One is the paint shaker, which is fantastic. Now gives me good quality paint to use. I'm now going back to mission models, primarily because of the person that I follow, which is Mike Rinaldi. This is his main go-to paint because we can now use this polyurethane that you can add to it, and this creates some fantastic burnishing opportunities when you use the paint. You can really shine it up, show wear on the actual vehicle that you're painting, and that will all get mixed in with the initial paint. And here's another reason for going back. This reducer is fantastic to improve the flow through the airbrush. I no longer have any clogs, any issues at all. It's a nice liquid to use. So once that's all put into the mix, we stir that all up until we get a consistency where the paint just runs nicely down the side of the cup, as you can see, like that. And then that's ready to add to the airbrush. And this is the final little gem that I've discovered, and one of the main reasons for going back to acrylics are these filter caps. It's amazing how much crap it actually picks up, and that stops all of the blockages going into the airbrush. And as you can see there, I'm using the Mobius from Galleria, which again is a beautiful airbrush, easy to clean. And quite frankly, I've been having a fantastic time airbrushing acrylics again. So now we've got all of that prepared. I painted the tank with the color, and the great thing about MMP is that you can now use paint and you can burnish the edges, whichever where you want to show on the actual vehicle. It's a very simple process. Um, Basically, this is probably about half an hour after the paint was laid down. Now, with all types of scratching and burnishing, the opacity of the paint is very important. So you want to make sure that you're not laying down thick layers. And as you can see from the cupola ring at the top, you manage to be able to burnish it off really nice, and you get that nice sort of shiny look where you can envisage the crew um, getting in and out of the tank, create that nice wear and effect. I'm just giving it another little polish off just so you can see how that glistens in the light there, and that's a fantastic quality now to add to your builds. Also, what it means is if you shine up a little at the side, you don't have to use varnishes anymore to put down your decals on. So you've got a nice shiny surface there. I actually used the Archer rub-on decals at the front, and then I used the kit ones for where I just showed you. Now we're going to have a little look at rust effects. We're going to be doing the tank tracks and obviously the spare tracks at the front. So I use my Vallejos, going from light to dark. And again, I've used the Badger primer initially on the tracks, and we're going to be using a little bit of sponge to do the rust work. And it can be used either on the tracks or, as we're going to be doing here, the exhaust cover first. So like I say, start from light, go to dark, very lightly tapping away. And what we want to do is just to get random coverage. And what you need to do this is while it's always wet. Don't allow the paint to dry. So just keep going around with the different colors, building up the different layers. Here we're going with the slightly orange brown rust. Now we're going with the actual rust color itself. and then finally we're going to add on dark rust, primarily round the edges. Now once that's all done, you then get a fresh piece of sponge and then go around and blend it all in, again while this is all still wet. And what that now does is give you a lovely rust base that you can now weather with future layers that we'll look at further down the line. Now what we do is continue that principle on the tracks themselves. Now, as I said earlier, we need to do this while it's still wet. So you don't want to be doing the full length of the track, because by the time you come back to the other colours, it will have dried out. So just do small sections at a time. And like we did with the exhaust cover, we start from light and work our way up to dark. And again, this will be a base for which we will then do further weathering with pigments and with oils, which I'll show you in the final video. So here we go now with the final dark layer. And then once that's done, if you remember, we then get a clean piece of sponge and go over what you've just done and blend it all in nicely. And then once that's all dry, you can then see your work, how well that's all come out. Very pleased with that effect. There's some close-ups. As you can see, I've left the central area because that's where it's going to get worn down with the tyres. Now let's move on to the MIG ammo paints. Been out there for a couple of years. For you who follow my work will know that the superb qualities this has, where you can chip without having to use hairspray, and also it does not take out the layer underneath when you use thinner. So lay down a very light color covering. What I want to do on this model is to achieve the look whereby the tank, they came over and they had to do a quick colouring of sand for the camouflage on top of the dark grey that they actually came with, but eventually that all wore away. So using the thinners, I say, some of the wire wool, some of the cut down brushes, and what we do is use a dabbing action using the thinner, creates those paint chips that we're after. Now, I don't know why it works. It's obviously some sort of chemical reaction, but it will not take away the MMP underneath the mission models. So as you can see, they're creating some nice chipping effects. We get the wire wool in there as well to create some of the scratches, because this is going to be fairly worn with the drivers and the crew going in and out all the time. But the key to this is the opacity of the paint. You're not laying this down thick. So it does come off nice and easy. And again, this was probably done about an hour after I laid it down. But because you're using thinner, you're probably okay for a day or two. Obviously, the longer you leave it, the harder it takes to come off. And again, I haven't taken any of the decals off using the thinner. It's a fantastic system and a lovely way to actually chip, not having to worry about the hairspray technique. So that was the turret done. Similar process on the wheels as well. As you can see, we've got a bit of that burnishing coming through as well from the initial MMP, and the other wheels were done. The underside I gave a little bit of a sprinkling, and I've also done some more detail work on the springs using a similar rust method that we looked at earlier on the tracks. So if we have a good look at the actual main body as well, use the same processes, and I've got that really nice worn out effect without having to use any hairspray at all. And this will all create a wonderful base for which we can then do pigment and oil work later on. And if you look really closely, there's some really minute chips, some minute scratches there, and for me it's a very realistic look. If you check your references, there's plenty of references that show this type of effect on the earlier tanks that arrived in North Africa. The decals are added in the normal way with microsol. And all that's really left now is the fine detail painting, which we'll have a look at in a moment. But all in all, very pleased with how that had gone. And as always, very impressed with the atom paints and mission model paints, how they react together. So I'll just leave you a few close-up pictures before we move on. And again, you can use this as reference for your own builds as well. If you're wondering about the large figure 8 on the side, that was based on one of the reference photos that I've been using. Now, this photo here is very interesting. If you see the lower hatch, it's predominantly yellow. The reason I did that is to show you the two variants. You could either gone for the yellow with a little bit of light chipping, or you could have gone for the heavier wear that I went for. I did eventually change that back to the heavy wear, but I thought I'd add that in so it gives you an idea of the different variances of chipping that you can use with this particular system of atom paints and mission models. You don't have to be this brutal, you can be very subtle with it as well. So the fine detail painting, did the undercoat on the jerry cans with German can brown. Then we masked off the area and then used that same mixture that we did with the base coat using the atom paints. Did a little different shade, so it did sort of be a little bit different to the main body. And again, because we don't need to use hairspray, once that's done, you just get the thinner out and then you could add the chips in as well. And I was really pleased with how that came out. As far as the box and that goes, that was just done as normal with the wood colors, the greens for the canvas roll, and metallic paint for the actual box. But again, these are just base coats from which we can now add on all the weathering. So as things go around, you can see the handles on the wire cutters. Again, that's just done with a mixture of red brown over a light wood effect. We've now put the cover on the exhaust at the back. Really pleased with how that's looking, very effective. And as we come round, we've heavily chipped the jack, and that's going to look really nice once done. We've got the grey fire extinguisher, and we're starting to do some wood effects on jack block. And as you can see on the underside there, more detail of the rust work, and also on the spare track at the front. As far as the spare wheel goes, just kept that grey. So I thought that was very realistic. And as for the barrels themselves, we got that lighter silver stripe that you do find on the reference photos. So all in all, very pleased indeed with how the paint job's gone. I've now got a lovely base for which we can then start doing the pigments and the oil work. And that's something that we're going to tackle in the final video, which I'll upload in a couple of weeks' time. So in the meantime, many thanks indeed for all your continued support, especially through this long summer project. I really have appreciated all of your comments and feedback. And in the meantime, happy modelling.